Namaste and welcome to another special discussion with Dr. Raja Bhaumik, a practicing doctor and a historian who's just written his book, Journey to India's Freedom, an Untold Story. So, Namaste, Dr. Raja.
Namaste, Jai Hind, Namaste.
So, we've had a couple of other discussions as well. You mentioned a lot in your book about a lot of the untold aspects of Indian history from the British era right up till 1948. So, in today's discussion, I wanted to ask you more specifically about a very widespread topic, which is which has a lot of contention, which has a lot of interest as well, which is the assassination of Gandhiji, which is directly attributed to Nathuram Godseji, indirectly attributed to many other people. So, what is the source or what is the root cause which may have eventually spiraled into somebody wanting to actually assassinate Gandhiji, and how much of it was caused by the partition of India itself? So, your book does talk about partition and Gandhi's assassination. So, which aspect of partition or what parts of partition eventually led to this?
Yeah, Namaste, Jai Hind. Partition was a very unfortunate event during the transfer of power. But it was a decided factor by the British because, as I'd already mentioned, as far as August 1945, the British already had made up their mind to partition India on communal lines before they left the subcontinent.
Right.
Now, at that point in time, when it was decided that the subcontinent had to be partitioned, the concept of notional boundary came into picture. This notional boundary was basically based on the census of 1941, which the Indian National Congress advised against. It did not allow the Indians to the non-Muslims to take an active part in the census of 1941. But Mr. Jinnah was, if I may use the word prudent, was prudent enough to ensure that all the Muslims took part in the census. As a result of which, many non-Muslim dominated areas in British India came to become Muslim dominated. So they were to become a part of Pakistan. Now, when on 4th of June 1947, Lord Mountbatten declared his planned partition, it was on the basis of the notional boundary that it was decided which area should be a part of the dominion of India and which area should be a part of dominion of Pakistan. As soon as this particular plan was actually made public, in those areas which were to become a part of the dominion of Pakistan, there were recorded acts of violence against the non-Muslims. On account of which, North India especially, North India bore the brunt, wherein significant number of non-Muslims who were displaced from their homes and also dispossessed of their property were forced to migrate into North India.
Right.
And this gave rise to a lot of problems. And there was a lot of discontent amongst the people of North India across religious divide, and they mostly put the blame for all of their travails on two individuals, that is Mr. Nehru and Mr. Gandhi. By that time, Mr. Gandhi had come back to Delhi from Calcutta, and he was staying at the Birla House because his original home, which was in one of the slum areas of New Delhi, had now been occupied by all the people who were being displaced from Western Punjab.
So, occupied as in, was it outside of Gandhiji's consent, or did he consent to give it away? Or?
By the time these people, the displaced people, they started, or rather the refugees, they started occupying these areas. Mr. Gandhi was in Calcutta, so he was in no way. It was not possible for him to know that his house in the slums of Delhi were being so-called occupied by these people. So when he reached Delhi, by that time he found for himself that his house was already occupied, and therefore Birla Palace was the place where he shifted to. So this is how Birla Palace came to be the last place where Mr. Gandhi used to stayed at Delhi during this particular period of time. As soon as he came back to Delhi, Mr. Gandhi realized for himself that there was a lot of anarchy, if I can use the word. There was a lot of anarchy in whole of North India, including Delhi. And there were certain processions which were organized or which were held during this period in which people were baying for Mr. Gandhi's blood. But Mr. Gandhi was not affected by these things because he took it all in his stride.
But don't they also say that that Gandhiji was not really okay with the partition part. And that is also one of the reasons why he was not there during the independence, the moment when Jawaharlal Nehru actually unfurled the Indian flag, citing independence. Gandhiji was not there. He was there in Noakhali. He was elsewhere.
Starting from the 9th of August of 1947, he was in Calcutta.
Correct.
He was in Calcutta on way to Noakhali.
So then, can he be implicated with what actually happened in the partition, or what do you think? I mean, why do you think somebody like Nathuram Godseji would actually implicate Gandhiji for the partition?
At that time, before the planned partition was announced by Lord Mountbatten on 4th of June 1947, Mr. Gandhi had made it very clear that partition would be over his dead body.
Right.
And this assurance was given by Mr. Gandhi even to a person like Mr. Maulana Azad. But then at the very last moment, he realized for himself that the partition was the only way out to actually ensure that the Hindu and the Muslim problems came to an end.
Okay.
So in one of the prayer meetings, he made it very clear in his speech after the prayer meeting that the Congress was not in any position. The Congress was not left with much of an alternative but to accept this. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. This particular speech was made in the month of June. So during one of the last speeches that Mr. Gandhi delivered at Delhi in British India, he made it very clear to the people that the Congress was left with little option but ultimately to give in to planned partition. So therefore, many people, if I can use the word, put the blame on Mr. Gandhi for misleading the people, because it was under him that most of the Indians were made to believe that partition can never happen as long as Mr. Gandhi is alive. So as a result of which, therefore, we find, in the studies that I have, through the books that I have read, I get an idea that people were literally hook-winded, or people were literally taken for granted that partition will not happen, and as a result of which there is no need for the people to evacuate or move on. But Mr. Jinnah, on the other hand, from the time that the partition plan was announced, made it, even before and even prior to that, made it clear that the only way that partition could be ensured without much loss of blood is through the exchange of population. So therefore, I think individually, I would rather feel that Mr. Jinnah was quite optimistic of the fact, and he was quite accepting of the fact that partition would involve the exchange of population, thereby rendering it bloodless and also bringing less of pain to all the people concerned.
Right.
This is where I think the Indian National Congress under Mr. Gandhi, Mr. Nehru, Mr. Kripalini and many others, including to some extent Sardar Patel, also erred. Sardar Patel and Mr. Ambedkar were of the view that if partition has taken place on religious lines, in that case, therefore, it is of utmost importance that there must be an exchange of population. All Muslims should move into Pakistan and all non-Muslims should move into India.
Right.
But this thing was also driven under the carpet by the top leaders of the Indian National Congress.
Right. So when Godse actually went and assassinated, and they say that there is a written document on why he's committed what he's committed, and some people say this is hidden, it's classified, it's not let out in public easily. So did you get a chance to see any such document? What was actually there in the document? What was his acts of, what was his justification for doing what he did?
See, his justification was primarily because of the fact that Mr. Godse was of the opinion that from the very beginning, Mr. Gandhi had always put the onus on the Hindus of Hindu-Muslim unity. As if, for example, it was for the Hindus to ensure the unity of the Hindus and Muslims. And that is epitomized by his stance with regards to the Khilafat movement, wherein he emphasized that it was the duty of the Hindus to help their Muslim brethren, or rather Muslim brothers, to ensure that the Caliph is restored in Turkey, that the Caliphate is restored in Turkey. When majority of the Hindus of the Indian National Congress were of the opinion that the Khilafat movement had nothing to do with Indian freedom. So it was from that time that Mr. Godse was very clear that the onus of the Hindu-Muslim unity is only on the Hindus and not on the Muslims. his subsequent acts during, for example, the murder of Swami Shraddhanand in December 1926, wherein Mr. Gandhi is addressing Mr. Abdul Rashid as his brother and putting the blame not on Mr. Abdul Rashid but on the various other forces which prompted Mr. Abdul Rashid to pull the trigger on Swami Shraddhanand, certainly did play a role in Mr. Godse deciding that Mr. Gandhi was not acting in a very secular manner. So these were some of the events which he had put forth. Subsequently, what actually anguished Mr. Godse was when Mr. Gandhi, he rather forced Mr. Nehru and Sardar Patel to pay the 55 crore rupees that the Dominion of India owed to the Dominion of Pakistan. Just as, just to actually reiterate the facts, at the time of partition, Pakistan was given, the Dominion of Pakistan was to receive rupees 70 crores. And of this 70 crores, 25 crores were given, 70 to 80 crores, of which 20 to 25 crores were given to Pakistan on the day that transfer of power took place. The remaining 50 to 55 crores were to be paid to Pakistan at a certain date. But unfortunately, from October of 1947, the Pakistanis, they started the first war of Kashmir. And that forced Mr. Nehru and Sardar Patel to decide that the 55 crores payment will be withheld till such time the situation is not normalized, because with that 55 crores, Pakistan would weaponize itself, which would be used against the Indians.
Right.
So Sardar Patel and Mr. Nehru were very clear that that payment was to be withheld till the situation normalized.
Right.
Two people who felt otherwise were Mr. Gandhi and Lord Mountbatten.
Right.
They felt that it was a solemn promise that the Dominion of India has made to the Dominion of Pakistan, and irrespective of the circumstances, that should be honored. So during the last fast that Mr. Gandhi undertook in the month of January of 1947, he forced Mr. Nehru to announce that the 55 crores grant or the 55 crores that was due to the Dominion of Pakistan is now being released.
Right.
What further piqued or rather what further prompted Mr. Godse to think that Mr. Gandhi had to be done away with was the publication of the 7th Charter Point, which Mr. Gandhi dictated to his secretary, Mr. Pyarelal, on the basis of which he would decide to put an end to his last fast. Surprisingly, if one goes through my book, you will get to understand that none of those 7 charters were in favor of the non-Muslims. To that extent, Mr. Gandhi even called upon the non-Muslims to evacuate the Muslim properties from Delhi and at the same time bear the expenses and carry out the repair work in those particular places. So this factor certainly played a significant role in Mr. Godse deciding that Mr. Gandhi had to be done away with.
Right. So, but in spite of this episode, if you look at who actually gained from this, who actually lost from this, you also mentioned about Swami Shraddhanand over there. So, bringing in the idea of Hindu Mahasabha as well. Ironically, Gandhiji is said to have attended the inaugural meeting of Hindu Mahasabha, and somehow Hindu Mahasabha was again kind of implicated in his assassination. So, if we look into this entire scenario of Gandhi assassination, do you not think that actually there was a bigger loss that happened towards whatever Godseji was trying to represent? Did Hindu Mahasabha not take a beating because of this politically, and did Nehru not gain more from the assassination? I mean, what actually happened over there?
One of the things that really bothered Mr. Nehru during the time of partition was that at the expense of the Indian National Congress, the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha was gaining in popularity, especially in Western Punjab.
Right.
Because the Hindu Mahasabha and the All India and the RSS especially did play more of a social role rather than a political one, because by that time the Hindu Mahasabha had almost been relegated to the political oblivion.
Right.
So RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha played an important role in ensuring that many non-Muslims including many senior Congress leaders in that part of British India, were safely rehabilitated or were able to come into the dominion of India. So number one. Number two, by that time, the communal forces in the entire of North India had actually polarized the situation to such an extent that even Delhi was under the threat of capture by the Muslims, for which Sardar Patel, as the Home Minister, had to requisition the forces from various other parts of South India to come and protect Delhi. So at that point in time, the only group of people who really were a succor or who were really providing help to the refugees in the entire of North India were people from the RSS and Hindu Mahasabha. I am not belittling the role which the volunteers from Congress might have played in actually extending their support to those people, but then the people from RSS did play a significant role in extending their help to the displaced people.
Correct.
So slowly in Delhi and all over North India, RSS and to some extent Hindu Mahasabha was gaining in popularity at the expense of the Congress.
Right.
This was much to the discomfort of Mr. Nehru.
Right.
And when unfortunately Mr. Gandhi was assassinated on 30th of January 1948, when it was pointed out that Mr. Gandhi was ultimately killed by a Hindu fanatic, it was the Congress which gained the upper hand.
Right.
And this to some extent has been recorded by Mr. Prakash Srivastava in his book Hey Ram, in which you can very clearly understand that it was Congress which benefited from the assassination of Mr. Gandhi the most.
Right.
Mr. Nehru at that time, there was no evidence as far as, because my scope of study ends at in 1948.
Right.
But from whatever I have read after that, there is no evidence to implicate Mr. Vinayak Savarkar, which was further highlighted by the fact that even the Supreme Court acquitted Mr. Vinayak Savarkar of any role in the assassination of Mr. Gandhi.
Great. So I think we've covered a significant number of points. So as a concluding note, do you think eventually, Gandhi, the assassination of Gandhiji, eventually do you think historically it made any change, or do you think something like if Gandhiji would have stayed for a couple more years, there could have been some more changes in dynamics in terms of India and Pakistan?
It was certainly expected to be, because in the first week of February of 1948, Mr. Gandhi was planning to undertake a trip to Pakistan by foot.
Right.
And his basic plan was that he will take with him a lot of non-Muslim people who were displaced along with him, resettle them in Pakistan, and bring back the Muslims from Pakistan and resettle them in their homes in Delhi. So might be if Mr. Gandhi was alive, it was possible that the pains of partition would have been put to rest. But we never know what Mr. Jinnah would have done under such circumstances.
Great, Ji. Thank you so much for your valuable insights.
Thank you.
So you heard the discussion about the partition and about the assassination of Gandhiji. We'll catch up again in another interview. Namaste and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Jai Hind.